is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes! The center back, Jakob Glesnes, is going for it. Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union, and they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and it's that time of year again where we go over our Philadelphia Union end of the season predictions, review, whatever you guys want to call it. So I've been saying on Twitter the last, week or whatever, saying that, look, I've got a couple people coming onto the podcast to just review this season with me. Of course, everything that happened against New York City. I'm sure a lot of us, it's still in our crawl, and some people are getting over that situation. Some people, they're still a little bit disappointed. And seeing Portland lose to New York City, yeah, that probably doesn't make things any better for Philadelphia Union fans, knowing that, there was a chance that we could win a trophy in this season, win MLS Cup. And thanks to MLS, Don Garber, whoever you want to blame. And maybe we get into that. I'm sure there's going to be moments in this podcast where we will agree on a lot of things, go on rants, whatever you want to call it. But I'm rambling right now. And like I said, I had 2 guests coming onto the podcast today, 1 returning guest and 1 brand new guest, unless you joined into the Free Kick Podcast when I was doing the Premier League and the Champions League. Well, number 1 returning to the podcast is Mr. Ed Fagan. Ed, how you doing, man?
Great. I think I've recovered. I think I'm going to be okay. I actually fell asleep, and the Union were hosting the Eastern Conference Finals at home for the first time ever. So I haven't checked any articles or read anything. What happened there?
I know. I don't know what happened in 2022. Maybe you saw.
Did they win it? Did they win?
In 2022? Of course they won. Of course they won. Now the question is, did we win with a DP striker? Now that's something that I can't tell you that happened or not, Ed. So,
all right. Well, I think we're gonna get. That might be the next jersey, DP striker.
Yeah. Don't even get a name. Just get, just get. We don't have a number 9 on the team, right? Nobody wears number 9. I don't think anybody wears number 9. So just get to say DP striker and number 9, and there you go. You're set.
That's going to be the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this isn't her debut because she joined me and my old co-host Tyler to talk Premier League, and I promise we won't talk about Pygmy. And that's and she's over there dying, and you guys are probably like, what? I don't even have those old episodes. Maybe I do, but you can't find them on the internet. What is a pygmy? No, it's not a piglet. I don't know. I forget what we talked about. It was so stupid, and thank goodness nobody in Philadelphia listened to that podcast, because they probably wouldn't listen to this podcast. And she is my sister, Shelby Lewis. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? And it wasn't a pygmy, it was a pigment.
No, I know, but I'm saying, now we're going to get into this stupid debate. I know it was a pigment, but I called it a pygmy, did I not?
Is it a pygmy? Is it a piglet?
Sister stuff going on.
And then I said piglet, did I not?
You did.
I did. And I'm pretty sure after that moment you said, I can't do this podcast, because like you're doing right now, well, you're doing a good job controlling your laughter. So I applaud you for that. But just welcome on to the show. You've listened to multiple shows, and you're not my producer, but we'll let people think that you're still the producer, so.
That's true, I'm not, but I do help keep score on the quiz show, and
Which makes you a producer somehow. So I guess we can.
That's definitely some sort of production, I think.
And I've helped upload shows and post tweets for you when you needed me to.
Hopefully, I can just sit here and actually host and not talk, but I always have a lot to say, and every time I say that, the episodes go a lot longer than what they plan on going. But before we talk about, end of season awards, just how we thought the Philadelphia Union did and whatnot, we got some news last week that Jakob Glesnes signed a brand new 3-year contract with the Philadelphia Union, which is huge news. Had a fantastic season for the Philadelphia Union this season. And look, I think any of us can make an argument that Jakob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, both of those guys, Kai Wagner, they all play on a DP level. I mean, not even just those three defenders. I mean, so many players on this team play at a DP level, and yet the Philadelphia Union finds some way not to pay these guys DP money. I mean, whether it's TAM, GAM, I don't know. There's just so much
Thank you,
MLS
man.
terms. Exactly. Philadelphia Union find a way to keep those guys below paying them DP money. And it's great to see Jakob Glesnes stay here in Philadelphia for another 3 years. I know he said on Twitter that him and his family are happy to be here in Philadelphia. And you tend to hear that a lot when the players, when they give press conferences, whether they give interviews with other journalists that cover the team, they always say how happy they and their family are. And that has to be a credit to the environment that Jim Curtin's built in that locker room, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think he's just, well, I mean, like, we're gonna go down like this list of guys today, but like, he's one of those guys when you tell people to like watch the Union, like watch this guy. He's gonna be an interesting one. He's like one of the biggest guys on the team, but he can move and dribble like anybody in the midfield in MLS right now, and he starts the attack a lot of the time. I think Curtin really sees more in him as a center back, as like a former center back. I think he excites Curtin that way he comes out of the back and, you know, starts the attack and passes and dribbles through people, and also provides like a threat on set pieces as like a header, or, you know, obviously the big kick from far out. And that, I mean, that Red Bull game, 123rd minute, the way like he played that, but you know, he just happens to be in the right place where it bounces out to him, and he plays it off his chest and hits that. And from where we were, I think we're a little bit behind you. Could almost not really, like, there's people in the way of the corner of the goal where he shot it. Couldn't quite tell if it went in. But then you see the players running off, and I'm like, oh, I got to see. I saw it go in. I'm still in like this state of disbelief. And oh my God, it was almost like the announcer on your intro. I always do this now, by the way, when I'm watching games. I've listened to this intro too many times, and I go, what a goal! To like the most easy tap in goal ever. I'll just say that because goals are exciting, so I'll just say that. But anyway, yeah, Glesnes, it's a huge, because we're going to be talking about these guys going out. Like, we're going to talk about this whole back line, and I think Glesnes is a huge anchor in that back line. And, you know, whether Wagner stays or goes, or how you feel about Mbeza's defensive, whatever it is anymore, versus his attack and what he brings there. Glesnes is a guy you kind of know what you're getting, and has a definite flair for dramatic when he winds up and hits that. But even just what he does on a normal game, I mean, they won the Supporters Shield with him last year. Steady as he goes. I mean, he didn't play every game. He had Elliott and McKenzie last year, but this year, you know, did he play every minute?
Yeah, every minute. It's crazy. Every minute.
I mean, you can't buy it. And like you say, they get it under a DP salary. You can't underestimate a guy like that. And to have him back, and like a lot of these guys, the last couple of years they've had, they can be looking anywhere to play. They could be looking in the second division in Europe. They could be looking for a big paycheck in Asia or somewhere, but they choose to. They like it here. They tend to choose to stay. So I'm curious to see, like, Glesnes signs. Now, does that mean X other players going to sign because he did, or isn't going to sign because, you know, it's going to be interesting to see it all play out. But having him back is so huge, just so huge.
Yeah, I feel like the Union now have to get Jack Elliott's contract wrapped up. They picked up his option, and we'll go over all the players that are going to be back next year, what players got their contracts declined. But I feel like if you pay Jakob Glesnes, you got to pay Jack Elliott whatever you paid Jakob Glesnes now. We don't have the terms to how much he's getting paid. We'll find out next year how much Jack Elliott, Jakob Glesnes, just everybody on the team will get paid once the MLSPA announces those reports. But look, you talked about it. I think that's just the way that the modern center back is, where they're expected to be comfortable carrying the ball out of the back, playing out of the back. You even see it with goalkeepers now. It's just the way that teams in Europe love having their goalkeepers, the two center backs play. They've got to be comfortable with the ball at their feet, starting the attack. And we saw that so many times with Jakob Glesnes, with Jack Elliott, just pinging balls from the back all the way forward, bypassing the midfield. And there's a Union attack because these guys played an absolute dime of a pass that started all the way from our own goal box all the way now into the final third. So, you know, whether Jakob Glesnes or Jack Elliott, you know, both of those guys have that range. Both of those guys can play the ball out of the back, and happy to see the Union rewarding him for his big season he had this season. I think he was hard done not to be nominated as one of the finalists for Defender of the Year. Same with Jack Elliott, but we can talk about the hate it seemed like MLS had for Union players this year in awards, and whether or not you want to
I'll
say
get
they
my
had
tinfoil hat out.
whether or not you want to say they had a conspiracy and didn't want the Union in the final. Maybe that's a debate for another day. Shelby, anything you want to add about Jakob Glesnes signing a 3-year deal with the Philadelphia Union?
I'm excited to see him return in Philadelphia. I like what he brings to the team and like what he provides defensively, and I'm looking forward to him scoring more bangers.
Yeah, it's what, 3 bangers, 2 bangers we got this year from Jakob Glesnes. So I don't know. The first year he played with us, scored 1 banger. Maybe this year he scored 2 bangers.
He's gonna hear it from the crowd forever.
Yeah,
he's
of course.
They're never gonna not say that. Yeah.
I mean, if you look, a 1 banger the first year, 2 bangers the second year. Will he give us 3 bangers in his third year? Let's hope, right? But yeah, just really, really happy to see Jakob Glesnes back, and yeah, we'll definitely talk about Jakob Glesnes, I'm sure, here in a little bit. But I want to go ahead and review my 2021 predictions. You guys can go ahead and critique me on this however you want. So my predictions for the 2021 assist leaders were: number 1, Jamiro Montero. I said he would have 10 assists in 34 games. Number 2, I said Olivier Mbaizo, 8 in 24 games. And then 3, I said Ali Bedoya, 6 in 26 games. And it was actually Kai Wagner led the Union.
Yeah, you slept on Wagner for sure.
With 7 in 33 games. Jamiro Montero, 6 in 27 games. And Daniel Gazdag, 5 in 23 games. Now, sometimes I like using MLS stats. Sometimes I like going on FBrief where they don't use the hockey assist that MLS uses. But for this, I decided to just use MLS's hockey assists. And Daniel Gazdag had 5 assists. And I think Football Brief, they gave him 3 or 4 assists on the season. So, yeah, those 3 were your assist leaders. And, I was hopeful that Mbaizo would be up there because I was like, okay, look, we're getting a guy who actually attacks after we've had all these years of Ray Gaddis who, is a good defender, but can never do anything in the attack. So I was really buying into the hype of Mbaizo. And, I felt like, Bedoya would be up there getting assists because we saw it the previous year. But, our strikers couldn't finish anything. So I feel like that's probably why Ali Bedoya didn't have as many assists as I was predicting. And then nobody knew that the Philadelphia Union were going to sign Daniel Gazdag midway through the season, so I didn't even get the chance to say Daniel Gazdag for that. But let's go ahead and talk about my predictions for the 2021 goal scorer leaders. I said number 1, Sergio Santos. I said 15 goals in 27 games. Number 2, Kasper Schmeichel, 13 in 30 games. And number 3, Anthony Fontana, 8 in 20 games. And the actual leaders, yes. And the actual Kasper Schmeichel, 12 and 34. So I was like 1 goal off. I gave him 1 extra goal. On that one. Number 2, Sergio Santos, 6 in 26 games. So I predicted Sergio would play 27 games. He actually played 26, which is still a career high for him in his professional career. So I don't know. I guess
that's a lot of that's off the bench. That's the problem there.
Yeah. And again,
in terms of minutes, like if you're going to compare games and games, he probably played less minutes than anybody would have predicted.
Oh man, now you're putting me on the spot where I need to pull up how many minutes he played. Maybe I'll come back to that later. And then number 3 was, again, Daniel Gazdag. He had 4 goals this season. Yeah, Daniel Gazdag, again, just who expected the Philadelphia Union to sign Daniel Gazdag? Who knew who Daniel Gazdag was? And the final thing I will go over is my standings, which, you guys can critique all this however you want. But my final standings were: number 1, Columbus Crew; 2, Toronto FC; 3, Orlando City; 4, the Philadelphia Union; 5, New England Revolution; 6, Atlanta; 7, New York City; 8, Nashville; 9, New York Red Bulls; 10, Chicago Fire; 11, Cincinnati; 12, Inter Miami; 13, DC United; and 14, Montreal Impact. Yeah, go ahead, guys. You guys can let me have it because none of that was close at all.
Well, the thing, I don't know, some of those were close. Red Bulls almost didn't make the playoffs, and then ended up making the playoffs. Columbus was a letdown this year for sure, and I think New York City FC, and it's like we say this every year, they never look good away from Yankee Stadium, so everybody sleeps on it until they have to play them. And yeah, a lot of these were road games in the playoffs that they won, but they have some, like Curtin said it, they're bringing a 10 million guy off the bench. They've got some players there, and like if you're in the playoffs and you can get to the penalty shootout and you have guys that can take penalties like they did, you might win games from it. The Union won at least one game from taking penalties, but NYFC had to do it against New England, and it was another like Blake versus Matt Turner moment with New England. Blake saves two, and Matt Turner gets smoked by New York City FC penalty takers, but they're good players, and Union should have been there, but what was their seed? What was their final seed? The Union were above them in the seeding, right? We played them at home. Were they third, fourth? New York City?
They were fourth.
Okay. So, yeah, they were definitely overachieved on your preseason ranking.
Definitely.
But, you run into these, like, skill player situations, like penalties, and those Maxi Moraleses of the world can win, and Sean Johnson, maybe had his biggest career moment there and maybe doesn't get the looks one would like to get with the national team. And he says, hey, I'm right here. Two penalty saves in the MLS Cup final, an MVP performance from him. So maybe keep an eye on Sean Johnson next year.
Absolutely. And Sergio Santos played 1,363 minutes, 26 games played, 17 starts. So, yeah, a lot of times Sergio Santos came off the bench. And let's face it, Sergio Santos barely played 90 minutes this season. He's a guy who gives you 60 minutes, and that's it. But Shelby, am I crazy for predicting Anthony Fontana after the big season he had the previous year with Philadelphia Union with 7 goals, I believe it was? I'm like, yeah, he'll do one more and get 8. And no MLS goals for Anthony Fontana this year.
Yeah, because he barely played. And I guess they found someone better to fill his spot. So he just wasn't the option. And I guess they just didn't like what they saw in practice from him.
But it's funny when you look at it, Fontana was getting played in the Champions League, but then when it came to MLS, his minutes started to dwindle after he got injured down in Atlanta. And I'm sure we'll talk about that game definitely later on in the podcast. But, Fontana, I mean, he had 2 goals, I believe it was, in Champions League. And then after he got hurt down in Atlanta, then it's like, okay, yep, you... no more Anthony Fontana. We offered you a contract at the beginning of the season. You didn't sign it. And then we offered you one midway through the season, and you still didn't want to sign it. So now we're not going to play you. And, I guess nobody could have expected that, Brendan Aronson leaves. That just makes sense that Anthony Fontana is going to step up. Jim Curtin says you get to the keys to the number 10. And Anthony Fontana barely plays in MLS and plays a little over 200 minutes in CCL play. But nobody could have predicted that, and so maybe you guys, the listeners, you guys are like, yeah, you suck at giving predictions. Don't give predictions for the 2022 seasons. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give predictions because they're fun, and it's always fun to reflect and just look and see how stupid you sounded at the beginning of the season. And I said for a successful Philadelphia Union season, which will end the podcast on this, was the season a successful season for you or not? I said they have to get 2 playoff wins and reach the CONCACAF final. That would be a successful season for me. And like I said, we'll talk about, was it a successful season or not for you? So let's go ahead and talk about the news that came out today. We're recording this podcast on Monday, December 13th, when all MLS teams released who they were going to protect and not protect for the expansion draft, which takes place tomorrow. We all know that Charlotte gets to select 5 players total in the expansion draft. Teams can protect a total of 12 players. Homegrown players under 25 are automatically protected, and they don't take up slots. And so I'll go ahead and give my list. Ed, you can give yours. Shelby, you can give yours. And then we'll go ahead and look at who the Philadelphia Union did decide to protect. So for me, I said Andre Blake, Kai Wagner, Jakob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, Jose Martinez, Leon Flock, Jamiro Montero, Daniel Gazdag, Casper Shabelko, Sergio Santos, Ali Bedoya, and Olivier Mbizo. Ed, who'd you have on your list?
I didn't even do a full list.
It's all good.
I think that the debate was maybe protecting Bedoya or leaving him open versus maybe Stuart Finley or who else did they leave? They left Bueno, who got some minutes down the stretch. So yeah, I don't think there was anything like too shocking, but like I think with these expansion drafts, there's some like handshake deals. There's talks about which players these guys want and which are on the table before, and if if they think a team might take Bedoya, then maybe they would protect them like they did, or if they think a team might take Finley, they might leave Bedoya out there and protect. Like I don't know, I think there's a lot of levels to the expansion draft thing, but the thing about our team and the way our team's built, they're all very like specific Ernst Tanner players, and they don't always translate to the next expansion team or even whoever. I mean, Harris Medunian wasn't drafted, but he played. He started with Cincinnati and played well enough, I guess. But they never did anything. And when guys leave that system, they either, like I think CJ Spawn had a good year. Some guys can leave and have a good year, and some guys don't. But I don't know. I think leaving Finley out there, I think they just know they're not going to take him. I think same with Bueno. They leave him out there, but I think they just know that the team's not interested and it's just their guy. So I don't put a whole lot into this. And I think when the draft happens and I just don't think they're going to take anybody from the Union. And if they do, it'll be maybe not the biggest loss. I don't really have much. I didn't do the full list, but I've seen enough tweets and articles about it so I can talk about it. But no, I haven't done the full list.
Yeah, definitely. Shelby, so before this list came out, who did you say the Union should protect?
I said Gazdag, Flock, Glesnes, Wagner, Blake, Elliott, Martinez, Montero, Santos, Shabilko, Bedoya, and I said Mbaizo.
Oh, wow. So we have the same exact list. And that's the exact list that Ernst Tanner decided to protect. Which means, like Ed said, you had to leave off Stuart Finley from this list. You had to go ahead and Jesus Bruno. You had to leave off Alvis Powell, which I feel like is a no-brainer in my opinion. But yeah, the two big ones are Bruno and Stuart Finley. And you go ahead, you look, Davo was unprotected, Joe Bendick unprotected, Corey Burke, who was unprotected. You go ahead and see Collins unprotected, El Senior's unprotected, Orvats is unprotected, Gino Portello, who everybody's like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Well, he signed a U2 contract back in January of last year, I believe it was. Supposed to be playing for U2, but then there was no league for U2 to play in, and yeah, Gino never got to play for U2, but apparently still with the team. And then Alvis Powell. And yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like, so I was looking at Charlotte's roster a little bit. I counted, they had 8 spots already filled up of international roster spots. And I believe they traded for 2 from Nashville, which would put them at 10. So that means they have 2 open. Now, by the time we're recording this podcast, maybe something could have changed and they've added some more international players, which means now they have even less slots. But I could see a guy like Stuart Finley potentially leaving, especially with how well he played against New York City. Jesus Breno, he's a young midfielder where, look, the other midfielder that the Philadelphia Union signed from Venezuela was Jose Martinez. We all know how he turned out. So maybe Charlotte's saying, okay, well, is this guy Jose Martinez 2.0? Do we take a risk? But I think, if anything, Corey Burke's a attractive player.
Right, yeah, I didn't even bring him up either. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Is because they don't have a striker. I know they signed a DP Brazilian striker today, but they only have one striker in the roster. I feel like you got to have more than one striker on your roster for sure. But the problem with Corey Burke is he takes up an international spot, just like Stuart Finley, just like Jesus. So do they want to waste an international roster spot on one of these players? Or at the same time, too, do they get calls from somebody around the league that says, hey, look, we saw that the Philadelphia Union have Stuart Finley unprotected. We'll trade you blah, blah, blah if you can trade a Stuart Finley, if you select him. That's possible, but I feel like teams in MLS could look at Corey Burke, who's a proven goal scorer in MLS, where, he's not a great striker, but he knows how to play in MLS. He's good at scoring goals in MLS. And he can get you minutes. He knows the league. And I feel like if they take Corey Burke from the Philadelphia Union, I feel like Charlotte could flip him and get some money off of Corey Burke. Or maybe they feel like Corey Burke can do a job for them down in Charlotte. So those are the three players, in my opinion, that Philadelphia Union fans should keep an eye on. But if I had to pick one of those three guys that got selected from the Union, I think it would be Corey Burke, just because of his experience in MLS and a new team coming into MLS. You want to take players that have MLS experience, and Corey Burke gives you just that.
I honestly wouldn't take. If I'm building a team, I wouldn't use a roster. I wouldn't use an international roster spot in MLS if I'm building a team from the ground up on any of those three players. I think they're all valuable players and they're good players, but I think Stuart Finley is either going to play here or maybe go back to Scotland. I think there's been talk of that, but he might stay here. Burke is a guy with, Blake's on the team. He kind of came up through, what was it, Bethlehem Steel at the time, or U2 or whatever the equivalent was scoring a while with them, and then scored a while with us, and then had injuries and kind of worked his way back in. But I still think Corey Burke's a guy that has more value to us than anybody else. So, and Bueno, I think he looked okay, but Martinez 2.0 is not, he's not that. You can see that in Martinez. You could watch him for 2 minutes and be like, oh, this guy's different. Okay, this guy's a different kind of player. He didn't have that, but he looked good. He was Bedoya's fill-in. He subbed on for Bedoya a lot, and he looked pretty good. But no, if I'm Charlotte, I don't take any of them. Well,
let's hope for Philadelphia Union fans' sake. Jesus Bruno. Yeah, I don't think he's a 6. I think he's an 8. Like you said, he's subbed on for Ali Bedoya or Jack McGlynn last game. I don't think he's a 6 at all. But again, we only got to see him play 32 minutes in MLS this season, so we didn't get to see him too often. But out of all the players the Philadelphia Union didn't protect, Shelby, do you think Charlotte takes any of those players? Do you think all those players are going to be safe? Would you take any players if you were Charlotte from the Philadelphia Union?
Well, I wouldn't take Jesus Bueno because I think he's pretty slow. I don't think he has a lot of speed, because when we watched him play versus NYCFC, I didn't like he came off the bench and he had no energy. And then Charlotte, I'm not sure what kind of people they're looking for, so I'm not really sure.
I don't think anybody is, honestly.
Okay.
They need players. That's for sure. I think they only have 10 players on their roster right now, so they need players. But I guess they're kind of handicapped having 8 international roster spots taken already. So now they're going to have to get a lot of players that have their green cards. And
there's usually good American players in these expansion drafts. You can get a veteran American MLS player in the expansion draft. Usually, I haven't looked through every other team's list yet. I've looked through ours, and that's not really there. It's our guys are international spots, and I just wouldn't use international spots. They've already used so many of them.
Yeah, only 4 players on this list have a green card: Alvis Powell, Joe Bendick, Colin, and then El Senor. I believe are the 4 players that have their green cards for.
Two of those guys may retire.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, let's see what happens on Tuesday. Hopefully, nobody gets drafted from the Philadelphia Union, and we go another year protected. The only thing I don't like about this is MLS puts this on YouTube, which is fine, but you want to grow your league and everything. I feel I don't know, hopefully when they sign a new media deal next year, hopefully we get more MLS content on TV, not just, okay, we'll only show the games and that's it for MLS content. But, I guess we could spend all night talking about ways to grow the league and whatnot. But let's go ahead and talk about the signings that the Philadelphia Union made this season. They signed Liam Flock, they signed Stuart Finley, Daniel Gazdag, Jesus Bruno, Davo, Jack McGlynn, Paxton Aronson, Quinn Sullivan, Nate Harriel, and Brendan Craig. So yeah, I included the homegrown signings. Shelby, we will start with you. If you want to go ahead and grade your signings, you want to give your reasonings why you gave them the grade you gave, or maybe you didn't give them a grade, maybe you gave them a 1 out of 10, I don't know. However you graded these guys, you can start us off.
Well, I'll just talk about the gradings that I did give. And for Davo, I didn't rate anything for him because we barely saw him play. Well, it was only 19 minutes, so I couldn't really judge on what to give him. For Jesus Bueno, I gave him a 5 out of 10. We got to see him play, but I wasn't wow, super impressed with him. Nathan Harriel, I gave him a 7.5 out of 10. Like, he looked good from what we saw. I mean, he definitely has a lot of areas to improve in and get comfortable playing with the Union. And then Quinn Sullivan, I gave an 8 out of 10. I think he's a really good player. I mean, his bicycle kick to score a goal, like, that was amazing. Jack McGlynn, I gave an 8.5 out of 10. He definitely was probably the best homegrown this season. His passing accuracy is really well. And, I mean, obviously he scored for a penalty for us.
He did. Great penalty.
And then for Paxton, I gave an 8 out of 10. I mean, he looked good, and he gave us 2 goals. But did he score 2 times?
3.
3. Okay, he gave us 3 goals. And then Stuart Finley, I gave a 6 out of 10. He looked really good against NYCFC. Like, I wasn't too, scared when he played. Daniel Gazdag, he gets a 10 out of 10. I mean, that was just a great signing. He is so good. And people at the beginning giving him a whole bunch of crap. Yeah. No. He is a really good player. And then Leon, I gave an 8.5 out of 10. I think he fits the team really well, and I liked what he brought.
Ed?
Paxton Aaronson, first real first team year, not starting, Aaronson's last season, he started almost every game, and he's not there yet, but he's on the Aaronson trajectory, as it were. He's probably developing faster. I think he finishes a little better. I don't think he has the same engine to just even to this day, with Austria and with the national team. Aronson just runs to the ball wherever it is, anywhere on the field almost. He just seems to be there and disruptive, and it changes the whole game for everybody. Paxton's not that, I don't feel like. I think he's more attacking and more. I think he has a better shot. He had that one header goal, and I'm like, can you just sit with Casper for a week and show him how to do that? Because he's a foot taller than you, and he can't hit that on frame. And he drove that through the goalkeeper's hand and in. So more of that. Okay, the other homegrown, and I'm at jersey level with this guy too, other than DP striker jersey, which that'll be the other one. Jack McGlynn, amazing year. You see Curtin's ride or die with him. He'll start him in the midfield if Bedoya is out. It's probably Jack McGlynn. And I agree. He just has that. He's their textbook academy product. He has every instinct almost right with him, and he has just good form, good engine. Not Brendan Aronson engine, different player, but he plays. It's almost like young. It's almost like a younger version of what you'd want Bedoya to be now. But I think he has a little more finish in his left foot. He's got some move. He's got some moves. He's got some dribbles. He's just got a lot going for him. And I think he's like an everyday starter in MLS at this point, if you ask me. I think he wilted a little bit in the NYC game, but I mean, these guys have been playing every week. I don't know we still don't know what's going on with COVID. I don't know who had it, who got exposed, and why he was able to play and why somebody else wasn't able to play. But he played well in that game, and he played well all year. And I think those two are. So I think I give Aronson B+. I give McGlynn A-. Maybe a couple more not. I just want to see a left foot blast goal from him once in a while, just a quick one instead of trying to make a move. That's the only thing. I think he's been great, and Paxton Aaronson just keep doing what he's doing, develop, and finish better than everybody. He's finishing better than everybody, and we'll keep doing that. Newcomers, I got Leon Flock, who I just didn't expect him to go right into the lineup. Just went right into the lineup. I think preseason. Did they sign him right before the preseason started or something? Yep. And I think he just went right into the lineup. And Curtin was just all right, well, he's going to be on the other side of the formation the rest of the year. And if he's not, he can fill in at the 6. He can fill in wing back. I think he played at one point, and he just pressures the ball. He pressures the ball. I mean, and he's just another one that I'll give him a B. Or I'll give him a B+, A-. Only he just needs a little more offense, just a little bit. Maybe that last pass, not even a shot, but the last pass. But the way he disrupts everything and just runs, he's just a great player to watch. And then the final, Shelby said, Gazdag, just what a player. He had he was just gassed out when he got here, played a million games in Hungary and the whole thing. And then they had to he flew back and forth. I don't know how many times, even during the season from Hungary. He scores with Hungary, comes back, scores with us. I mean, he's just getting into a groove. And I think a full preseason, and if he can gel with, if they're going to play the tree, it'll be the other 10. If it's the diamond, it'll be the other striker and the guy behind him. But when he fits in and gels, watch Gazdag opening day next year. That's going to be the statement game for him. He's going to put in 2 goals on opening day next year. If he doesn't, there'll be assists or something from the DP striker that we keep talking about. So I give him an A plus, and I give Ernst whatever on signing him. Good player. He might be dead. He might have been dead, but he played great.
Everybody knows how much I've had complaints about people going after Daniel Gazdag on this podcast. So I give Daniel Gazdag an A. I mean, look, when he first joined the team back in May,
by the way, I think those people that we keep talking about are gone. I don't think they exist anymore.
Yeah, I feel like that too.
If they complained about him, they deleted the tweet. I just keep seeing, where's the Gazdag haters? They're completely, they've left the country. They've left the area code. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. The tweets have been deleted.
I know where they're at now, but I'm not going to say. But yeah, I mean, look, Gazdag got signed back in May, made his debut against DC United in May, and you could tell he was a player that had potential to do great things, but it was hard to expect it right away when you add up all the minutes, like you said, Ed, and the calendar year that he played. Now he finally gets to get some rest. I think he's going to have a huge season for the Philadelphia Union next season. I mean, I think this is the 10 that we've been crying for years. Like, how many times have we seen the Philadelphia Union sign 110, and then the next year the Philadelphia Union just get rid of them, Marco Fabian, or they go back to Europe, Dashkow.
Well, they leave. Dashkow left. They didn't want to get rid of him.
So, I mean, we've seen it happen multiple times with number 10s. And look, to have Daniel Gazdag for a full season next year, I think this guy is going to be tremendous. But, it's just hard for a player to join a new league, new team, and it's a lot to ask of a player that joined midway through the season. I mean, I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast where you look where how many times can you count on players had success coming into MLS midway through the season? Not many. But after his benching against Montreal, looked a total different player. We started playing the 4-3-2-1 formation, Christmas tree. 4 goals in his last 8 games, 6 goals in his last 10 if you count the 2 friendlies against San Marino and Poland. Now, I know San Marino is a laughingstock in Europe, but Poland, they're a pretty good European team, and to score a goal against Poland, it's pretty good from Daniel Gazdag. So I give him an A. Liam Flocker also gave him an A. Just like you said, the only complaint I have about Liam Flocker is his flaws offensively. Yeah, he got a goal this year. Probably shouldn't have been a goal. Terrible goalkeeping, but a goal nonetheless. I mean, how many of us on this podcast, how many people listening to this podcast can say they have a goal in MLS? Probably 0. So
no, but I stood on the field.
Yeah. Look, when the Philadelphia Union had take a kick for your free season seats, I think in 2019 or whatever, they said you had to hit the crossbar. Yeah, I didn't even come close to hitting the crossbar, so I can't complain about the kind of goal that Leon Flock scored. So he scored a goal. So props to Leon Flock for scoring. But look, I think people tend to forget, or maybe they just don't know. But when the Union signed Leon Flock from St. Pauli, this was Leon Flock's first season of first-team football in his career. He wasn't playing first-team football soccer for St. Pauli. And I think people are also forgetting that Leon Flock's just 19 years old. To see Leon Flock work his tail off so well defensively at 19 years old, I mean, Jim Curtin praised his soccer IQ multiple times this season. And, every game that the lineups came out, I was like, I can't believe that this guy is still in the lineup. Like, what does Jim Curtin see? But then you see this guy just presses and presses and presses. And look, there's Shelby producing. So I guess we should say you're a producer when you said Leon Flock's 20 years old. So thank you. But Leon Flock in just MLS, he was first in successful pressures. He was second in total pressures, 7th in blocked passes. 11th in tackles. We needed someone to step up and replace Brendan Aronson's pressing numbers, and Liam Flock was exactly that for the Philadelphia Union, in my opinion. The only thing that I think all of us can agree on is we just wish that Liam Flock had more offensive ability in him. Maybe that's something he works on in the offseason, and he comes in, now he does it both, offensively and defensively. That would be fantastic for the Philadelphia Union. And if he does that, then after next season, he's not with the Philadelphia Union anymore. Hopefully by then he's getting called into the national team, because if he's getting called into the U.S. national team, it's only a matter of time before he goes back to Europe, in my opinion. Stuart Finley, I give him a C, minus the playoff game against New York City. I thought all of his other starts, sorry, Shelby, I thought they looked shaky. Still trying to find his footing in MLS, but, that's hard to find your footing when you have the two best center backs in front of you, and Jakob Glesnes and Jack Elliott. Jesus Bruno, I give him a C. It's hard to judge a player that played 31 minutes. I know I said 32 minutes earlier in the podcast. 31 minutes in 6 matches for the Union in the regular season. Another late summer addition who, just like Daniel Gazdag, was trying to find his footing in the league. He seems to have a good defensive IQ about him. And like El Brujo, he's not afraid to show his passing range. But like you said, Shelby, I don't think he's the fastest player on the field, but he shows an urgency about him to work his tail off defensively. And for that, I applaud his effort, but just not enough for me to say, okay, this guy's going to be good for the Philadelphia Union. Oh, this guy's going to be terrible, because 31 minutes in 6 matches, it's not enough for me to judge. Davo, I mean, how can you judge this guy? 19 minutes, that's all he played for the Philadelphia Union. I mean, look, we saw this guy warming up, comes over to the sideline. We all thought that he's going to come on. I forget what game it was. And then he gets told to sit down. It's like, Jesus, like, how many times did we hear Davo in the river end? People wanted Davo to come on, and he only played one time.
It didn't last too long.
It did not last at all. And look, we needed another striker in October when Sergio Santos, Corey Burke were both injured, and he couldn't even make the bench. So, I don't know. I mean, it had to be something, I guess, in training that Jim Curtin didn't like, and Ernst Tanner wanted to get Gabriel Silva from Palmeiras in Brazil, but they wanted a sell-on clause, so didn't sign Silva, and he knew he couldn't come back with nothing, so he came back with Davo, and yeah, one match, 90 minutes, ugh. Jack McGlynn, though, you guys said everything there is about Jack McGlynn. I give him a B. He led all homegrown players in minutes played in MLS this season. The passing ability, you both talked about it, just wow. For an 18-year-old, so good. He was 4th on the Union this season in accurate long balls. Medium long balls with a minimum of 170 attempts with an 87.6 completion ratio. He was 8th on the team in key passes, and he only played 638 minutes in MLS this season. And to be 8th on that list, like, if he plays 1,000+ minutes, he could potentially lead the Philadelphia Union in key passes next year, in my opinion. Paxton Aronson, again, I give this guy a B. You guys have said all there is about Paxton and his finishing ability. 3 goals, like you said, Shelby. Like you said, Ed, looks to be a better finisher than Brendan Aronson was at this age. And that's something that Rusty Aronson, his dad, and Ernst Tanner were telling us before Paxton Aronson ever stepped foot in a Philadelphia Union jersey, is that he was a better finisher than Brendan Aronson was at his age. And 3 goals in his debut season, yeah, it's not bad at all. And he's a player towards the end of the season, I think, that was really pushing for a starting role. But the unfortunate thing for him was he had Daniel Gazdag and Jamiro Montero both playing in the 10. Quinn Sullivan, I know Shelby, you gave him a high rating. I feel like in the middle part of the season, we saw a lot of Quinn Sullivan. Then near the end of the season, who's Quinn Sullivan? Turned into Anthony Fontana 2.0, where Quinn, I feel like, could barely get any games. Nate Harriel, I gave him a C just because we didn't see him a lot. 3 out of 6 starts, including the start at left back against New York City, which, he looked fine playing with the left, but he's a natural right-footed player. He'll do the work defensively and offensively for you. And then Brendan Craig, can't rate that guy at all because never played at all for the Philadelphia Union this season. So those are my ratings. Anything you guys want to add to just the signings the Philadelphia Union had this season? All right, well, we are good to go into this. Yeah, we said everything.
It's a lot of just Ernst. Like, Flock, I look at my thing. Flock and Gosdog are like the big ones. And it's just like they're quintessential Ernst Tanner finds and successful players.
Yeah,
He just
exactly.
did it again.
Yeah, I mean, in Ernst we trust. I like. I know we all joke on social media like this guy needs a statue outside of the stadium, but like honestly, when he leaves, like I do hope that the Philadelphia Union do something for Ernst Tanner because without him, phew, I guess we'd be stuck in the Ernie Stewart days. I mean, I guess Jay Sugarman would go for another Ernie Stewart, and luckily for me, I wasn't really around for that time frame, and unfortunately for you, Ed, you had to suffer some when Ernie Stewart was at the helm.
Stewart was fine, but he kind of did start, the sort of post Nixickevich era, and it was really good at the time. Now, as time went on, and he started to say things about how we're like a national team factory and we don't care about wins, they had to bring in another GM to tell the fans that yes, we do care about wins now. It was like a big deal. So, and Stewart, a lot of people haven't loved what he's done with the national team since he left the Union. So you can make of Stewart what you will, but they needed somebody that wasn't Nixickevich when he left, and they sort of started they started like the training facilities around when Stewart was there, and they started doing like the practice fields and doing more around there, and maybe that coincided with Sugarman getting some free money or whatever. But Ernie Stewart wasn't great, but there were some good moments there, I guess. Ernst Tanner is just, Stewart had all the organization right, but he didn't have this instinct with player signings the way Ernst Tanner does, and that ended up being the difference.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead. We talked about the signings the Philadelphia Union made this season. Let's go ahead and talk about potential departures. Shelby, we'll go to you again. With you can put it in order to the least likely to leave to the least likeliest that you think will leave. So however you want to start it, what players could you see potentially getting sold by the Philadelphia Union this offseason?
Corey Burke. I think someone will pick him up. Stuart Finley.
You left off Jameer Montero, Abrujo, Kai Wagner. You don't think any of those guys get sold? You think they're going to be with
Kai
the team?
will probably go to Europe. For sure. I mean, he has too much talent. Someone will definitely buy him. Jamiro, I could see him sticking around for a little bit. But he did have an offer. That's why we didn't see him play for a while, right?
That's what was reported. He there was a fight in the locker room down in Miami between Ernst Tanner and Jameer Montero. That's what it came down to.
Yeah, so maybe he'll stay for a little longer. And then who was the last one?
El Brujo.
Oh, I don't want him to leave at all.
That's fair. Ed, any potential departures you see happening this offseason?
I think Wagner is the scariest one. I think he's the most likely to be sold and go back to Germany. But, he's got a family here now. Haven't they had kids and stuff? He might, they might like Philly. Maybe they'll stick around.
Hey, Glesnes, and he's really good friends with Glesnes.
That's what I'm saying. Glesnes resigns. Maybe a couple more years for Wagner, and then he goes back to Germany. But I'd like to see him stay. And I think Bueno's going to stay. I think El Brujo's definitely going to stay. Big agreement there. And who was the other one?
And Jamiro.
Well, I think he's going to be gone. I think like you said, the stuff with Ernst, I don't think it went very well. I think he came back for like his teammates and the fans, to play well and to earn his next deal. But I don't know if he wants to be here anymore.
They made him captain against New York City instead of Colin.
Yeah, and I think he's worthy of that. I think he's one of the best players. I think he's like all around one of the best players they've ever had on this team. It was a big deal when they were able to keep him that one off season.
Deal.
But
we were all hyped. Like it was what
I don't know if I just don't know if it was if the thing with Ernst, if the subbing off and the fighting and the subsequent rumors and everything else. I don't know how much that's going to matter. I think it might matter more than we know. So I guess we'll see what. But I think he might be out. But if he is, they have some salary to work with. It's not it'd be the end of the world if he moved on. But I hope he doesn't move on with an MLS. I don't want to have to play him.
Oh God, that would be terrible if he left to go to.
I wouldn't like that.
MLS. Yeah, I mean, if we sell him, don't sell him to another team in MLS. Sell him overseas. But yeah, Stuart Finley, there was reports that, a team in Scotland, Hibs, was interested in signing Stuart Finley. Apparently, the manager just got sacked for Hibs. So maybe UK, well, that guy doesn't have a job. So maybe Stuart Finley doesn't go back to Scotland now. Like we talked about, he was unprotected. Hopefully, Charlotte doesn't take him in the draft. I know Jonathan Tannenwald did an interview with him a couple days ago. He said that he and his wife or girlfriend, I'm not sure what she is, they're happy in Philadelphia. I tend to believe that. Like we talked about the culture that Jim Curtin has made with all these players, how all these European players say how much they and their families love being in Philadelphia. I don't think that's just PR BS. I think that's the actual
not with him.
truth.
He's gonna have Flyer season tickets if he stays.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude goes to so many Flyer games and he seems to really enjoy it. So I see on Twitter, I think it is, always posting pictures of him at the Flyers. So maybe he's a hockey guy. Flyers could use him on defense.
He is now, yeah.
Flyers could use him. Bizo, I think he stays. Number 4 on my list. I don't think he gets sold. I know there was a report in the summertime that a Ligue 1 team was interested in him in France, but I think he stays. Number 3 on my list, Jose Martinez. This one for me, I think is 50-50. I think, he's 27 right now. He'll be 28 in August. He's in the prime of his career. If he really wants to test European waters, and this would be the time for him to go, especially the way that he played against New York City in the playoffs. I think that was his best game ever for the Philadelphia Union. The dude was all over the field for the Union. He played so well, just breaking up plays, starting attacks. And yeah, like you said, I don't want to lose him either, Shelby, because, all of us Union fans were tired of watching Harris Point not put in any effort defensively. We got exactly that. Just kidding. No, Jose Martinez did the opposite of that. He put in a shift defensively. He could play the long balls, which we all love by Harris Medunian, which we weren't sure if Jose could do. And he can. And yeah, I don't want to lose him, but I do think that Jamiro Montero and Kai Wagner, unfortunately, we lose both of those guys, which would be a huge blow for the Philadelphia Union, especially Kai Wagner, where I think he's the best left back in MLS. And we've never had a good left back, in my opinion. You can argue Harvey was a good left back. I know a lot of people say, it's when the Philadelphia Union were new and everything, and you take whoever you can get. But I feel like we really haven't had.
That was a classic. I forget if he got traded or expansion drafted, but that was a classic miss, and they were cursed for years after that. I mean, not necessarily cursed. They had guys, but
Ray Gaddis would play on the left sometimes.
Ray started on the left. And actually, he looked okay, but it wasn't going to last. Fabinho had good games, but wasn't always great. Gabe Farfan was okay, but wasn't a left back at all, really. So, yeah, it's a storied history at that position. And
Is it ever?
But, yeah, I think Wagner is definitely easily the best one. And probably the best in MLS for the last couple of years. And if he wants to stay, we'll keep him here.
Yeah, we'll keep all these guys. Like, I would love to keep the whole team intact because, look, let's face it. I think the most important part for the Philadelphia Union is for them to have success, they need to keep the spine of their team intact, which means the goalkeeper, Andre Blake, I don't think he's going anywhere. You just signed Jakob Glesnes to a long-term deal. Jack Elliott, you hope to get him to sign a new deal. And then Jose Martinez. If you keep those 4 players, your spine, the middle of your team together, I think the Philadelphia Union are always going to have success. It would suck to lose Kai Wagner and Jamiro Montero, but I feel like the Philadelphia Union could replace Jamiro Montero. But Kai Wagner, that's the one that I'm nervous about. But look, this might be a hot take for some people listening. I think Kai Wagner, if he goes to Europe, I think he's good enough to play for the German national team as a left back. They don't have a left back. I mean, Gosens, who plays for Atalanta, I believe it is, he's more of a left midfielder, but Germany had him playing as a left back because for whatever reason, Germany can't produce a left back at all. So if Kai Wagner gets into a top 5 league in Europe, plays well for that team, I don't see why this guy can't get call-ups for the German national team. I mean, he's a modern-day fullback. Teams love fullbacks that attack. Kai Wagner gives you that. He does a job defensively. Like, man, And losing him, it's going to hurt me. I think he's probably my favorite player on the team. I try not to get too attached to players because, it's the MLS. Players don't stay here forever. They use MLS as a stepping stone, especially here lately, where Ernst Tenner goes and signs all these gems from Europe or South America where, these guys are looking to get back to Europe or go to Europe. So they come to the Philadelphia Union, play well for a couple of seasons, and then get noticed by teams in Europe, and then they're gone. I know that hasn't happened yet, but I think it happens this offseason. But areas that the Philadelphia Union have to upgrade. Can we all just say this at one time? Number one,
DP striker.
Like we all know they need a DP striker. That's all we need. Whoever wants to take a go.
I think even Ernst has addressed it by now. He says we're looking at the position or whatever front office people say. Because I guess he sees all the social media. He did address it already, but it's going to be interesting to see what they turn up.
Look, and people I know want, what players would you sign? I don't know. Like I've already accepted that. I don't know what Ernst Tanner sees. Well, I know what he sees. He sees young players. He wants young players that he can sell to Europe eventually. I know all these people came out with, we want these older players. It's not going to happen. Ernst Tanner is looking for those young players. He already said that he doesn't want to sign players that are going to be paid a high salary because he doesn't want to upset the locker room. He wants to keep guys around the similar pay structure. So I don't know what DP striker Ernst Tanner is going to sign for the Philadelphia Union. It's probably going to be a player that none of us have ever heard, probably from a league that none of us ever paid attention to or pay attention to, and we'll be happy with it because more times than not, Ernst Tanner's signings come off.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's probably going to be somebody that we haven't heard of. DP, they might play around with. They might throw allocation money at it and bring them down. But it'd be a big. They don't really have. They don't have a lot to prove. But it'd be a big statement to the fans if they spent like the $1 or $2 million that they say they'll do for certain deals, and they've done for Montero. Even just like that amount in a striker that Ernst puts really the stamp of approval on, somebody that he really likes, and that Curtin likes, and will still like. You can bring in, you can go scout Davo and bring him in. If Curtin doesn't want to play him, Curtin's not going to play him. So it's going to have to be somebody that fits in. Ernst guy, probably won't have heard of him, and he's going to have to be able to make the team with Curtin too. And if you check all those boxes, nobody's going to care if they've heard of him. Scored 20 goals, nobody cares. They'll have heard of you by the time you've scored the 20. Maybe not before, but they'll have heard of you after that.
Yeah, I just think we need someone who finishes and is comfortable shooting outside of the box.
Yeah, which was weird, too, because the Philadelphia Union were one of the highest teams in MLS in 2020 with shooting outside of the box, and then they kind of went away with that in the 21 season. Maybe they go back to that for the 22 season. I think all of us can agree that our strikers are definitely streaky. They aren't the most confident bunch of players, but when they're on, they seem like, okay, yeah, we don't need a striker, but they're just way too inconsistent for my liking. I think for me personally, I think I would keep a hold of Sergio Santos and Kasper Schmeichel. I'd get rid of Corey Burke, and I would go and find a DP striker and then find a player to replace Corey Burke. For me, I totally forgot that Corey Burke takes up an international roster spot. And I feel like you could do a lot better with another player taking up an international roster spot than Corey Burke. But that's just my opinion. Let's go into the Union Yearly Awards. We'll start with you, Ed. Who, in your opinion, was the best defender this season?
See, this was a problem. But you know what? I get to choose first. So I'm going to go Wagner. Kai Wagner led the team in assists. Just had another lockdown year at left back. Did some stuff on set pieces that was different. Some like those into the ground, those low driven on the ground shots that scored. I like what they were doing with him. And I think the problem with Defender of the Year for me, if it's not him, I don't know who to choose between Elliott and Glesnes. Maybe you guys can choose those.
So we'll see what Shelby said. No, one of those three guys that you pick, none of those guys, in my opinion, are the wrong answer. But let's see if all three of us can have a different answer. So, Shelby, you're Defender of the Year?
I said Kai as well.
Wow. So I'm the only one going different. I said Jack Elliott, which, look, all three of those guys played great. Like, how can you say
I just couldn't choose between
one's
Elliott and
better than
Glesnes.
the
They
other?
both just locked down. Yeah.
I don't know. I like Jack Elliott because I feel like Jakob Glesnes, we saw a lot of times this season, team score because they play this ball, this cross in between Jakob Glesnes and Beiser or Alvis Powell, and both of those guys get beat. I feel like Jakob Glesnes has been bailed out a couple of times by Jack Elliott just because of his reach, with him making up a couple steps because of how tall he is. But I mean, look, both of these guys have scored bangers. Jack Elliott scored a free kick this year. Kai Wagner scored a free kick. Jakob Glesnes scored a crazy goal.
Jack Elliott scored
in
too.
United. I know. I said he scored a free kick.
Oh, I totally missed that.
It's all good. It's all good.
Didn't hear it.
I did.
The first one.
But yeah, it is nice to have center backs, left backs that are able to score, especially on set pieces where, you know, I felt like losing Harris, like that was his biggest attribute to this team, was his delivery on set pieces, whether that was free kicks or corner kicks. And the defenders really stepped up big time this year when we had set pieces. But let's go ahead and talk about Newcomer of the Year. I know, Ed, you said Daniel Gazdag. Shelby, you will say Daniel Gazdag. I will also say Daniel Gazdag, which we won't have to debate this. We already talked about it earlier. Let's go ahead and talk about Homegrown Player of the Year. Ed?
I mean, it also ties in earlier, but yeah, I'm going Jack McGlynn. You kind of went through it. He was like he was one of the best homegrowns in MLS this year.
Shelby?
I give honorable mention Paxton Aaronson, but I got to go Jack McGlynn.
As much as I would like to say Matt Freeze, I said Jack McGlynn.
Wow, this isn't fun. All three of us, again, back-to-back players we agree on. Yeah, Jack McGlynn for me too. And then I got a question on Twitter, pulling up his username right now, from Jose. Jose said, most likely homegrowns to become regular starters next season. McGlynn for me, especially if Ali Badori gets his minutes cut in half just because of his age. I think Jack McGlynn's the ideal replacement for me, so I can see Jack McGlynn. What homegrowns do you guys think will be a regular starter next season? Jack McGlynn, Paxton Aaronson, somebody else? Cole Turner?
I wish Cole Turner, but nah. I mean, Hartford County represent. But no, I definitely think Jack McGlynn would like come and start for LA because we've seen him get gassed after, I want to say 80 minutes, 75. And you've seen him on the field like, why not me? Sub me. Why not? So I definitely see Jack McGlynn starting more and giving Ali a break because he deserves it.
Agree with that, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's like we kind of said before with the 10s. I think Aronson's going to get like a big bump in minutes. He might not get like all the starts because Gazdag, he's just too good. But he's not going to. Gazdag's not going to play every game. I'm not going to wish injury or anything, but I think Aronson's going to get spots to play this year, and I think he'll play more minutes. And I think Nate Harriel might get more minutes this year.
Yeah, especially if we don't bring back Alvis Powell, right?
Yeah, if something happens with him, if something happens with Wagner, somebody else has to play left back or whatever they work out, he might end up getting the third center back or the third fullback minutes. Could be interesting.
Absolutely. Well, biggest disappointment. So this can be a player, something that happened in the season. However you want to take this, go ahead, Ed.
Wait, what was the question?
Biggest disappointment.
Okay, I have it in my notes here. I think biggest disappointment for me, Sergio Santos regular injuries again this year, and just not making the minutes. I think we were talking about it earlier. He got minutes, but mostly off the bench or like 60-minute starts. I think Casper had like, as much as he's inconsistent for maybe games on end, sometimes he plays, a ton, and he's out there for you for 90 minutes. I almost want that. Like, I didn't get the different style players. Casper's never going to run like Santos. It's never going to be the same. But if I could just get more minutes out of Santos, I'd be happy. And then obviously the biggest disappointment is not having a full lineup for the Eastern Conference Finals at home. Also that one. Sorry,
that's my
it.
biggest disappointment of the season is maybe not so much not having those 11 players, but that MLS never updated their COVID policies, how literally that whole situation doesn't make sense, where you say these players were high contact, these players weren't, where those players are around each other every single day. Nothing MLS decided made sense with that situation. I'm not bitter, but I just want transparency, and that's something that I feel like MLS doesn't give us all the time. And yeah, it hurts, but I'm over it. You guys heard last episode, I was really, really proud of the effort that the players gave, and I'm sure we'll talk about that game again here in a little bit, but yeah, it's my biggest disappointment as well. Shelby, what's yours? Or player, maybe?
said the signing of Davo. I was disappointed we didn't get to see him play more because we signed him as a striker. And when Sergio was out, it would have been nice to see him play or something when we didn't. So, except one time. But, oh well, such is life.
It is. Well, Union MVP. I'm 99.18% sure that we all agree with Union MVP.
There can only be one.
I believe that his goalkeeper plays for the Jamaican national team. He is Andre Blake, everybody's MVP.
Oh, yep. Andre Blake. Blake.
It's on there, Blake.
It is.
I'm not lying.
What do we have to say about Andre Blake?
He's a goat.
Had a better season this year than he did last season. Somehow doesn't win goalkeeper.
He deserved goalkeeper of the year. I don't know how Matt Turner got it, but okay.
Well,
that could be the biggest disappointment.
MLS's Twitter account openly roots for the U.S. over Jamaica, even though their league has goalkeepers for both teams. Right. It's a little fishy. It looks a little weird. Tinfoil hat and everything.
Well, let's go ahead, before we wrap this up, just a couple more things to get to. Top 3 moments of the season. So instead of giving all of ours at once, we'll just go number 3, 2, 1. Shelby, what was your number 3 moment of the season?
I said the PKs and playoffs against Nashville. That atmosphere and how bad Nashville did. Wow. It was insane. And Todd was just like, I don't know if I can watch. I
said the same thing to you when Jamir Montero took his penalty against Club America. And what did I do? I watched and it got saved. And I really didn't want to go through that disappointment again. So I think it was valid. Look, Jim Curtin doesn't watch them. So I think other people feel the same way about penalties.
True.
But I'm glad I watched.
Yeah, I know. It was so good.
It was. Huge saves by Andre Blake.
Yeah, and then 2 big misses by Nashville.
I wouldn't say, 2 misses. Yeah, they completely miss a goal, and then 2 saves. So you're right. 2 misses, 2 saves. Good job. You know what you're talking about. Sometimes I don't, so I applaud you. Maybe you should do this.
No, this is not my niche, but thanks.
Ed, number 3 for you?
Man, I had Nashville as number 1, but I'll take my number 3 for me was a Club America game at home. Not so much that we won, because we didn't, but it was a really unique atmosphere. It was a weeknight game, pretty late. It was 9 o'clock start or something. But the Sons of Ben chanting out in the parking lot, the smoke bombs, and all the Club America people circling around, taking pictures. What the hell are they doing? Who are these people? They kind of took over our stadium, But we showed out. Our fans showed out, and I think it was a really proud night. It was just a cool experience. It was a Champions League night, and I didn't, some of the years with the Union, you didn't think you'd ever have that, and to have it against Club America and their fans, it was just something I didn't think I'd ever experience.
Yeah, that atmosphere is crazy, and I almost put that on my list. But I was a little bit disappointed because I thought Shelby and I left at a great time. We're getting to the stadium super early. We're going to march in with everybody, and we get stuck in traffic on the bridge coming down to the stadium, and then I'm like, okay. Are we even going to get to this game? Should we just go back home? And we made it before kickoff, so I was happy, and it's a great game. And the atmosphere was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I know people were disappointed with how many Club American fans were there, but I love when a lot of fans for a visiting team comes because it makes that intense environment, and I feel like the players just thrive off of that, and it was just really, really cool to see. Maybe what happened after the game in Philadelphia wasn't so much cool, but Yeah, that's an awesome shout, and I'm glad I didn't put that because we could definitely all have some of the same moments. But for me, number three on my list was going live on Twitter Spaces after the Philadelphia Union beat Atlanta United 3-0 down in Atlanta during the CCL. I think I had 24 people in that at one point, which was wild. My friend Brad called in when he was leaving the game. Shout out to Brad because he lives in Knoxville. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. Got caught in traffic and drove from Knoxville to Atlanta United and got there at the second half. And he knew he wasn't going to be there for the first half of the game. And he's like, I'm still going. I'm still going. And luckily for him, no goals were scored, I believe, in the first half. And he got to see all the goals scored in the second half. And after that game was over, I'm like, I'm going live on Twitter Spaces. And so many people joined. Brad joined and everything. So, like, hearing just the noise from the stadium, him walking back to his car. I believe some other people that were down in Atlanta that night got on Twitter Spaces. So yeah, it was really cool to go live on Twitter Spaces to talk to people that were at the game, to go live right after that game. That was a big moment for me. But number two on your list, we'll go with Ed.
Number two, I have Glesnes long distance goal against Red Bull in the 123rd minute of extra time. I already talked about it a little bit earlier how my angle was weird, and I didn't really get to like these things happen so fast. So I mean, I knew it was a goal when everybody else did, but like there was a weird angle of the curling ball, and see the players reel away, and it went in. And then it's one of those when I have to rush home. Maybe not rush home nowadays. You can pull it up on your phone, but I had to see the replay. Like, I got to see that again and watch it like 10 more times. That was nuts. And the place erupted. That place, the penalty kicks had a lot of like moments. But like maybe the last one when I think Zimmerman was the last one and he skied it and everybody went crazy. But I think that goal had more of like a just pop, as they say in wrestling, just like wow. And that was just wild. That was just one hell of a moment.
All the different angles that people got in that stadium that Kim, the social media manager for the Philadelphia Union, when she was on the field, captured that moment. Oh man, I watched that video so many times. I still watch it. I mean. It's unbelievable. Just people just knew to record in the right place at the right time, and man, to see the actual stadium camera shake because we erupted so loud and oh my god, dude, that was intense. Shelby, your number two moment though.
It happened on October 3rd. It was the Union versus Columbus Crew when we won 3-0. Jack Elliott scored a free kick in the 25th minute, and then coming back from halftime. In like a minute, Ali Bedoya scored with a low cross by Casper in the 46th minute. And then in the 64th minute, there was a red card given to Kai because he had 2 yellow card accumulations. Wild. And then in the 76th minute, there was a Columbus Crew PK and a great save by Andre Blake. And then the end in the 89th minute, Leon Flock, first career MLS goal. So that game was just so eventful, and like I always watch the highlights because it's just like one of those games I will always remember. It was just wild.
I totally forgot that Kai Wagner got a red card in that game, and then Andre Blake saved the penalty from Pedro Santos, and I feel like once that moment happened, then I believe Andre Blake saved a penalty from Gustavo Bo for New England a couple games afterwards. And then like when we went into penalties against Nashville, just remembering all the saves that Andre Blake had in penalties in the season, I was like, yeah, Andre is definitely saving at least one penalty in this game. And he saved 2 penalties against Nashville. But for me, my number two moment was a playoff game, but not the playoff game either one of you guys talked about. It was the final against New York City. Just for me, I talked about it last week. If you guys want to hear my thoughts on that game, go ahead and listen to last week's episode. Just against all odds, like the players really stepped up in that game, and I couldn't have asked for any more. We were forced to play the team that we had to play in. We even scored first in that game, which I wasn't sure we were going to be able to score. I thought maybe we would get blown out just because Colin hadn't played in so long. Finley looked shaky at times. No Kai Wagner as a left back, but the players didn't disappoint me, and yeah, like I said, just get emotional thinking about that game. So listen to the last episode if you want to hear my thoughts on that game. But we heard Ed saying the number one moment for him was the game against Nashville. It's a great moment, and I would have that top of my list too if it wasn't for this moment, Shelby, for both of us on our number one.
It was our first game, like away game to Atlanta. That weekend was so much fun, and it's like something I won't ever forget. In the Georgia Aquarium, amazing.
Got to do it, right? The number
You
one,
have to do it.
the biggest aquarium in the United States,
And
I
the
believe.
third largest in the world.
Look at that. I remember that.
Good job.
That
I'm
was
proud.
awesome going to the aquarium, seeing a Jakob Glesnes banger. Like, dude, all the stick. Like, look, credit to all 10 of us Union fans that went down to that game because we tried to chant, right? And we're getting mocked. We're getting heckled, whatever you want to call it, by the Atlanta United fans behind us. They're trying to get louder, trying to chant too, stop us from chanting. Like, dude, there's only 10 of us. Like, we're not making a difference. Like, your supporter section's drowning us out. Like, nobody can hear us. Like, just let us be. Like, I get it. He's just heckling, having fun and everything. I had no problem with it. But, like, literally, Corey Burke scores, and then you're like, there might be a chance. And then Jakob Glesnes, what he does best, like, listening to that stadium be dead silent, and all you hear is us screaming. The looks on the Atlanta United fans' faces, like, they were stunned. And then this old guy, I forget what he said when we were leaving the stadium. Like,
he's like, Philly sucks.
Yo, you guys got lucky, something like that. And then meeting up the first time in person with our friends Brad and Caitlin.
And Baby Anderson.
Yeah, that was a great moment down there. Just meeting up with those guys, going to a soccer game with those guys. Like you said, our first away game to Atlanta United. Beautiful stadium. Kind of wish that it was a soccer stadium, but nonetheless, I mean, it's not bad compared to some of these stadiums that aren't soccer stadiums in MLS, I think. And looking forward to doing that trip again next season. But these are our top 3 moments of the season. So one last question that we got in, and this came from Lou. And he asked Ed specifically, he said, does Ed prefer Charlie's or Zach's burgers?
Okay. Todd's from Maryland, so he doesn't understand that, like, in Delco, food is like a huge deal. And like your corner pizza places, corner cheesesteak places, and your corner burger places, and all these places, and they have them all throughout, Delco neighborhoods, and they're all it all gets kind of like contested. People put, oh, this place has a better cheesesteak than this place. Oh, well, yeah, but the pizza at this place is better than the pizza at that place. And it's all that stuff back and forth. So Lou's question was what? Charlie's Burgers versus Zach's, and one's at the corner of McDade and 420, and the other one's further out. They're both on McDade, I think. Actually, no, they moved Charlie's. They're both further down McDade, I think, in Ridley Park and Delco. Similar burgers, thin burgers, fresh ingredients. I think at Zach's they toast the bun by default. I think at Charlie's you get a regular, not toasted bun. I think the menu at Zach's is a little bigger. The menu at Charlie's is very basic. You just get burgers and milkshakes, I think. And they give it to you in the old bags of rolls. It's real. Charlie's is real old school, but Charlie's loses a few points because they moved locations. It's still all the same people, and it's still the same recipe and all that sort of thing. It's still legit. You can still go there and get the same Charlie's that's always been. But the old location was kind of hilarious where it was. And Zach's loses a few points because it's a chain. There's not just one Zach's. There was one in Media. There's one, I think there's 2 other ones in Delco or whatever. So, and they have a truck. They have the food truck. And Zach's also, and this is the big tiebreaker, and how we all get back to this is a union podcast. Zach's had the stand in Subaru Park. I could get Zach's, if I got in the stadium half an hour early, I could get Zach's, go up to the river deck, have a beer, and eat my Zach's before the game even started. Charlie's never got in the stadium. But after the pandemic, Zach's isn't in the stadium anymore. They got to fix that. They got to get Zach's, get it back in the stadium. I'm going to start a petition, get Zach's hamburgers back in the stadium. It's close. It's pretty much a tie. Charlie's is more old school and more specific. Zach's has more locations and is more accessible, and it was in the stadium, so they get a slight edge. Zach's, bring it back to the stadium. That's my hot take on that. All right, that's it. Bye.
That should be the podcast title. Bring Zach's back to Subaru Park. might be, but I don't know if people like looking for a Philadelphia Union podcast. Well, actually, I mean, most of the people that listen to this podcast are from Philadelphia, so actually that might get the most clicks. So you might be on to
Those
something.
Those places are both about like 10 minutes from the stadium. Zach's and Charlie's. You just have to pull up your Google Maps on the way out or on the way to the stadium, and you can try this comparison yourself. They're not far from the stadium.
There you go. People are always asking what to do before or after the game, and go to Zach's or Charlie's burger joint. But the last question I asked you guys, I asked it at the beginning of the podcast. I said, they need to get 2 playoff wins and reach the final of the CONCACAF Champions League for it to be a successful season. They got the 2 playoff wins. They finished second in the Eastern Conference. They reached the semifinals for the CONCACAF Champions League. For me, it's 100% a successful season. I think this season was better than last season, where we actually won a trophy. I thought this year we were close, and I think if it wasn't for COVID, I think we would have been lifting MLS Cup this season. But, we'll never know because of MLS. But what about you guys? Successful season or not a successful season? Shelby?
Successful. Yeah, I was really proud of the team this year, and I feel like we've really got to enjoy our season tickets because you went to all the games. I almost went to all the games, but it was really good to get back and get with more fans as soon as they lifted the 100% capacity, like everyone could come back. And the team looked really well.
Yeah, a successful season is mild. Like we said, that they've never hosted an Eastern Conference final, so they marked that off the list, even though they didn't have the roster for it for various reasons. They've never done that. They never accomplished that. So it sort of becomes the discussion of, is it the best season they've ever had? And then you compare that and the Supporters' Shield. It's like, well, they did get a trophy, but they also made the semifinals of CONCACAF Champions. I give it to this year. They made the home Eastern Conference Finals, home CONCACAF Champions League semifinals. So this was the best season. Can they do it again or do something more or less? It's going to be interesting, but I think this was the best season they've had.
Absolutely. So, Ed, where can people find you on social media if they are not following you?
It's at BuzzkillEd, Buzzkill_Ed. Follow back all Union fans. And if you're a Union fan, you should follow back other Union fans too, in case we need to organize for a collective purpose. Stay tuned.
Yes. Do you want people to follow you, Shelby? It's up to you.
Oh, one more thing. Vote for Ricky for travel director. Ricky Zelafro, SOB. If you're an SOB and you vote in the elections, vote for Ricky Zelafro, travel director. He'll save you money on your road trips.
There you go. Plug for Ricky. You want people to follow you on social media, Shelby? No?
I mean, I'm only active on Instagram. So if you want to follow me, it's Shelby_Lynn with an E at the end, 09. I don't post anything Union really. It's usually animals or nature related because I'm a biology major. So animals are my thing.
Yeah, and if you guys aren't following the podcast at Free Kick Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, follow it there. Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. There is no website anymore. More on that later on, potentially. But I do want to let you guys know, I said it last episode. So many people have retweeted it on Twitter. But I am giving a jersey away, a 2021 Philadelphia Union away jersey. So if you guys haven't retweeted that, if you guys aren't following the podcast, make sure you follow at Free Kick Pod on Twitter to potentially get yourself a 2021 Philadelphia Union away jersey. And the last thing I want to talk about is, so you guys will know if you've listened to the podcast from the very beginning that last year I started the Philadelphia Union Trivia Podcast where Ed participated in the first 2 seasons. I'm not going to bring back the Trivia Podcast for this offseason just because MLS comes back in 76 days. So I feel like that's not enough time to host all these trivia games. And plus I'm away for, I feel like, half of January. So I just don't have enough time to do that. But the Trivia Podcast will definitely come back because MLS season ends early this season because the World Cup is in November. And so that gives us plenty of time to do the Trivia Podcast from November all the way up until February. So the Trivia Podcast will be back, just not when I've normally scheduled it in the off season. So what the future looks like for the podcast for the off season. If you have not been on the podcast before to talk about the Philadelphia Union, you want to talk about the season the Philadelphia Union just had, hit me up on social media. I'll get you to come on the podcast, just like Ed and Shelby tonight. We talked about the season. I can do it with you. You can get your thoughts out there because I love connecting with Philadelphia Union fans. I love talking all things Philadelphia Union. So if that's something that you're interested in, yeah, please hit me up and I will get you on the podcast and we can do just this. That what Shelby and Ed and myself did, and maybe not for as long, longest podcast ever, but I knew it was going to be a long one and it's worth it because the podcasts are definitely going to be slowing down because it's the off season. But Shelby, Ed, thank you guys both for coming onto the podcast. And we will, obviously, I'll talk to you, Shelby, every day, live together. Ed, we talk pretty much every single day. Get FIFA, dude. You got to get FIFA, and then you can get on that FIFA grind. Get it when it's like $30. I think it is actually now.
Yeah,
so
I'm
waiting
holding
on?
I'm holding out as long as I can. I'm still playing all my star players on the old one. A lot of Maradona. Been a lot of Maradona lately. So I've been playing with him on 21. So when I want to grind the next one, maybe it'll be on sale. We'll see what happens.
With that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.